Have you ever looked at your life and quietly asked God, why am I still alone? Why does it seem like everyone around you is finding love, building relationships, and moving forward, while you are still waiting? Maybe you have watched your friends get married. Maybe you have seen people who came after you find the person they prayed for, and deep inside your heart, a question keeps returning. God, did you forget about me? Is something wrong with me? Why is my story taking longer? But what if I told you something today? What if your singleness is not a sign that God rejected you? What if this season you are walking through is not empty, but it is actually a season where God is preparing something you cannot see yet? Because sometimes God keeps you away from something, not because He wants to hurt you, but because He wants to protect you. Sometimes the door that did not open was not a punishment. It was protection. Sometimes the relationship that never happened was God saving you from a pain you were not ready to understand. You may have prayed for a person, but God was working on the person you needed to become first. Because God does not only prepare blessings, He prepares hearts. And maybe the reason you are still single is not because you are forgotten. Maybe it is because God is building something inside you that requires time. There are seasons in life where God separates you from distractions because He wants your attention. Before God brought Eve into Adam's life, He first gave Adam purpose. Adam was not created empty, waiting for another person to complete him. God gave him responsibility. God gave him identity. God gave him a purpose. And this teaches us something powerful. The right person is not meant to become your purpose. The right person is meant to walk beside the purpose God already placed inside you. Many people enter relationships hoping another person will heal their loneliness. But only God can heal the deepest parts of the heart. Because if you enter a relationship broken, you may expect another person to fix what only God can restore. And that is why sometimes God allows a waiting season. Not because love is not coming, but because He wants you to be ready when it arrives. Maybe right now you feel like nothing is happening. Maybe you feel like your prayers are going unanswered. But remember this, a seed grows underground before anyone sees the flower. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean God is not working. There are things God is developing in secret: your character, your wisdom, your faith, your patience, your understanding of love. Because the blessing you are asking for requires a version of you that has grown strong enough to carry it. Look at the story of Ruth. Ruth went through loss. She experienced heartbreak. She entered a season where she probably did not understand what God was doing. But behind the scenes, God was already preparing a new chapter for her life. She did not know that her ordinary days would lead her toward a blessing she could not imagine. She did not know that her waiting season was connected to a greater purpose. And maybe your story feels the same right now. Maybe you only see the waiting, but God sees the destination. Maybe you only see what is missing, but God sees what He is creating. The hardest part about waiting is that we often judge God's plan by what we can see today. But God sees the complete picture. You see one chapter. God sees the entire book. You see the delay. God sees the preparation. You see loneliness. God sees the person you are becoming. So if you are single today, do not believe the lie that you are behind. Do not believe the lie that your life has passed you by. Your timeline is not broken. Your story is not forgotten. And your worth was never determined by whether someone chose you. Before anyone else loved you. Before anyone else saw your value. God already placed value inside you. Your season of singleness is not proof that God has abandoned you. It may be proof that God is working deeper than you realize. Maybe the reason God has allowed this season is because He is teaching you something that you could never learn while being distracted. Sometimes we ask God, Lord, when will someone come into my life? But God may be asking, are you becoming the person you need to be when that person arrives? Because the truth is, God is not only concerned about giving you someone, He is concerned about preparing you for something healthy, peaceful, and meaningful. Many people pray for a relationship, but they forget to pray for wisdom. They pray, God, send me the right person. But they do not pray, God, make me ready for the right person. And there is a big difference. Because the wrong relationship can take you away from your purpose. The wrong person can make you lose your peace. The wrong connection can create wounds that take years to heal. And sometimes the greatest blessing God gives you is the relationship He never allowed to happen. You may have cried over a door that closed. You may have wondered why someone walked away. You may have thought, if only that person stayed, my life would be different. But what if God knew something you did not know? What if God saw conversations you never heard? What if God saw intentions you never noticed? What if God protected your future by removing someone from your present? Because God does not only see what you want, He sees what you need. There is a story in the Bible about Joseph. Before Joseph became a leader, he went through a season where he was alone. He was betrayed. He was separated from his family. He was placed in circumstances he did not understand. Imagine Joseph sitting in prison, wondering, God, did you forget me? Why am I here when I was trying to do what was right? But Joseph could not see what God was building behind the scenes. The prison was not the end of his story. The waiting was not wasted. The loneliness was not meaningless. God was preparing him for a position he was not ready for before. And maybe your single season feels like Joseph's prison. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you feel like everyone is moving forward except you. But remember, a hidden season does not mean a forgotten season. God often does His deepest work in places where nobody else can see. The world teaches us to measure our value by attention, by relationships, by being chosen by another person. But God measures you differently. Your value does not increase when someone loves you, and your value does not decrease when someone leaves. Your identity was never supposed to come from another human being. It was always supposed to come from God. Because when you know who you are in God, you stop begging people to complete you. You stop chasing people who are not meant to stay. You stop forcing doors that God has closed, and you begin trusting that God's timing is better than your own. Maybe right now you are in a season where God is teaching you patience. Maybe He is healing parts of your heart that you tried to ignore. Maybe He is removing insecurity, fear, and past pain. Because a healthy relationship requires a healthy heart. You cannot build something peaceful while carrying everything that damaged your peace. And sometimes God separates you before He connects you. He takes you into a quiet season because He wants to speak to you. He wants to strengthen you. He wants you to discover that you are already complete through Him. Look at David. Before David became king, he spent years in the wilderness. Nobody was celebrating him. Nobody was recognizing him. He was just a shepherd taking care of sheep. But in that lonely place, God was preparing a king. The wilderness was not a delay. It was training. The same thing can happen in your life. Your quiet season may feel ordinary. You may think nothing special is happening. But God may be developing qualities inside you that will matter in your future. Your patience, your kindness, your emotional strength, your faith, your ability to love correctly. Because the person God brings into your life should not meet someone who is desperate for love. They should meet someone who understands love. Someone who knows that love is not about filling a hole. It is about sharing what God has already built inside you. So if you are waiting today, do not let loneliness convince you that God has forgotten you. The silence does not mean God is absent. The waiting does not mean God said no. Sometimes waiting is where God prepares the greatest blessings. And maybe one day you will look back at this season and realize, God was not denying me. God was preparing me. Maybe today you are asking God, how much longer do I have to wait? Maybe you are tired of being patient. Maybe you are tired of watching other people receive what you have been praying for. Maybe you look around and wonder, God, when will it be my turn? But remember something important. God is not working according to your clock. He is working according to His perfect timing. And sometimes the reason something takes longer is because God is preparing something deeper. Think about it. A masterpiece is not created instantly. A building is not completed in one day. A strong foundation takes time before anyone sees the beauty above it. And your life is the same. God is building a foundation inside you. A foundation of wisdom, a foundation of patience, a foundation of faith. Because the blessing you are praying for needs a strong foundation to stand on. Many people want the promise, but they do not want the preparation. They want the relationship, but they do not want the growth. They want the blessing, but they do not want the process. But God knows that receiving something before you are ready can sometimes become a burden instead of a blessing. That is why God sometimes says, wait. Not because He does not love you, but because He loves you too much to give you something that could destroy your peace. You may not understand the season you are in right now. You may feel forgotten. You may feel invisible. But heaven is not ignoring your prayers. God hears the prayers you whisper when nobody else is around. He sees the tears you hide from people. He knows the moments when you feel alone. And He understands the desires of your heart. The same God who created the universe is also paying attention to your personal story. Your love story is not too difficult for Him. Your future is not too complicated for Him. Your waiting is not outside of His control. So stop comparing your journey with someone else's. Someone else's marriage is not proof that God forgot you. Someone else's relationship is not proof that you are behind. Everyone has a different season. A flower does not compare itself to another flower. A tree does not rush its growth, because another tree is taller. Everything grows according to its own timing, and God has a timing for you. Maybe your single season has been teaching you things you never expected. Maybe you learned how to enjoy your own company. Maybe you discovered your purpose. Maybe you became stronger. Maybe you learned to depend on God instead of depending on another person. And those lessons are valuable, because the person you become during the waiting season matters. Never underestimate what God can do in a person who has learned to trust Him. Remember this: God is not preparing you for just any relationship. He is preparing you for something that aligns with His purpose. The right person will not pull you away from God. The right person will encourage your faith. The right person will not destroy your peace. The right person will add to what God is already doing in your life. But before God brings someone into your life, He wants you to understand this truth. You are already loved. You are already chosen. You already have value. A relationship is a blessing, but it is not the source of your worth. God is. So if you are still single today, do not look at yourself as someone who is waiting to be completed. Look at yourself as someone God is preparing. Your story is still being written. The chapter you are living in right now is not the final chapter. The loneliness you feel today may become the testimony you share tomorrow. One day you may look back and say, "Now I understand why God made me wait. I understand why certain doors closed. I understand why some people left. God was protecting me. God was preparing me." And maybe the reason you heard this message today is because God wants to remind you, your waiting season is not wasted. Your prayers are not forgotten. Your future is not delayed beyond God's plan. Keep trusting, keep growing, keep becoming the person God created you to be. Because when the right season arrives, you will realize that God was not holding something away from you. He was preparing something better for you. If you believe God is working in your waiting season, right timing is perfect in the comments. And remember, sometimes the greatest blessings come after the longest seasons of preparation.